Well, hello, guys. Welcome to Hope Rescue Podcast. It's Kimberly and Tim Scott. It's been a minute since we've been here.
Been a couple of minutes.
A couple of minutes. We took a little sweet vacation. Actually, an anniversary trip that was scheduled before COVID for our 15-year anniversary. And now,
So 3 years ago.
Yeah, we had a paid-for trip. And we had to postpone it a couple times, which was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But, you know, these are the things you trust God's timing on. And we had a sweet rest and a very romantic time together.
Here's the thing. This is not our topic today, but if you've ever spent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week together with somebody for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's a test.
That's
of
real
whether,
love.
Yeah, that's
You mean
love.
if you survive it, or did you
No,
thrive in it?
I thrived.
We had a great time.
Thrived.
Now, there's been many a trips that we haven't had that good of a time because of all the things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
But it was precious.
Had a blast.
We had a precious
So
time.
we've missed you all,
Yes,
and we're
we
glad
have.
to be back with
and
you.
Thanks for those of you that have noticed we've been gone and missed us too.
Hey, by the way, it's a good thing if you invite your friends to go to hoperescue.org, and they can get the podcast there. They can get our expository or my expository preaching there. Just finished up Philippians a week ago, and we're starting on the book of Jude. And a little short series because it's only 1 week, but
Right.
you can get all of those
And future
at our
studies.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, a free material for anybody you know in leadership. Take those and use them for a weekly home group or whatever. It's
Yeah.
great resources. So
we've come up with an idea, and the idea is for this podcast and the next one is, and maybe a following one, I'm not sure yet, but we want to talk about what we would do as elderly people.
No.
Speak for yourself. No, what we would do in terms of the wisdom that we've grown into and the advice that we would give to younger people, but kind of along those lines, we were talking
What
about
we would
this
say
idea.
to ourselves.
Yeah, what we would say to
Right.
ourselves. But we're going to give advice to.
Yes.
I'm going to give advice to men. You're going to give advice to women.
Sure. Yes.
But
I could do a whole episode on advice to give to
well,
men.
then I'll leave. Maybe I'll go get a cup of coffee.
I think we should do that one time. Switch it up, like the 10 things you would like your partner to know the most.
Oh, that's good.
That's
Good
actually
idea.
good.
Yeah, that's
maybe
great.
someday.
Here, we're doing podcast preparation on the podcast. So anyway, we're thinking, like different stages in our lives. Like, for example, before teens, preteen life, what would you say? And not a lot that a child is going to do to make decisions, but our teen years, our college years, career and marriage, and parenting, midlife years.
Kind of the things we wish someone would have said, and some have through those stages of our lives. And so we're kind of giving away the things that were valuable for us, lessons learned. And so it's very practical.
So what would you say to young Kimberly Adams, your name back then, at age, say, teens, puberty, 12, 13, whatever. I hit puberty at 20.
Yeah.
I was a late bloomer.
Well, it's interesting because the list I came up with, and I'll be sharing that next week more in detail, closer to Mother's Day, which is kind of appropriate. But my list came as I was processing and writing it down. So much of it was a circle back to core principles that I wish that I needed to remind myself of throughout my life.
Yeah.
And it begins very young. And I don't think that's exclusively for women. I think it's across the board. But for me, as I started writing down, I almost couldn't stop writing down the list. They were things that very early I struggled with. And I think you'll understand as I go through that. And then in different stages of your life, it resurfaces in different ways.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was thinking in terms of, for example, age-specific things.
Yes.
So many times we're trying to grow up fast.
Yes.
And I think you're going to talk about
I
that. And,
am.
when you're young, you want to be old. When you're old, you want to be young.
Yeah, that was one of my first things is it's okay to be your age.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But I was thinking, some of the decisions we make as teenagers that when we're adults, we wish we hadn't made.
Right.
For example, a lot of young kids because of family problems or whatever, make decisions for petty crimes, sometimes more serious crimes, get involved in gangs and so forth. And I was thinking, even sex, people just feel we live in such a sexualized society.
Right.
People are making decisions about sexual behavior before they're adults, and this is a really huge mistake. And I think if there's anything that I would say to myself when I was young, is there's plenty of time to wait. And I unfortunately didn't follow that. I'll be honest about that. As a teenager, I wish I had, and I wish I had waited. Those mistakes impact your life. They don't destroy your life, but they impact your life, and you have to kind of get over that. And it takes, in some cases, a supernatural act of God to break that bondage that you have with another person.
And even the bondage to the shame that you carry. And I think that's what's really valuable is that it's never too late to start fresh. And it's never too late to begin again and walk in forgiveness and grace of God. Because I think so many people feel buried by those things and I'll just speak from my perspective as a child, having been molested at a very young age. I so wish I could turn back the clock and have, said the things to protect myself and talk to somebody when it was happening. And so you carry those issues of shame. And I would love to go back to that little girl and say, it wasn't your fault. It's, and but God is a healer, and we've experienced that. And so,
which, by the way, is a really good point. If you know somebody in your world that you know or suspect that that's happening, it's always wise to enter into a conversation, not to create a problem, but to really address that problem if they've been molested or sexualized in some way.
Yeah, just provide a safe space for them to process if they're ready.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next podcast. But I was just thinking, what advice would I give to men? And I wrote down a lot of things, and we'll kind of interact about this. And some of these are maybe just a little bit controversial. Some of them are just, kind of intuitive wisdom.
It's your story.
Yeah. Well, and it's a story of most men. One of the things, first thing I wrote down, first thing that came to my mind is you need to enjoy the journey. And what I mean by that is kind of what you're going to be talking about, the whole age thing. We want to grow up too fast. As a young boy, I wanted to grow up so fast. And also when young children, you want to get your career going. You're a young father, speaking specifically to men, you're a young father. And you're thinking, I gotta get this career going, and so you don't spend as much time with your children as you should, and you wish you had. I would say to young men that have young children, enjoy that. And I'm watching Ronnie as a young father, and I watched Mario, our son-in-law, just embrace being a father. And so I'm really proud of them. And honestly, I did not do that like I should. I really enjoyed my daughters, but I was distracted. And then when I had another young family to raise, our young family to raise, I was much more interested in being with them and being home and interacting. So I would say enjoy the journey. The journey has ups and downs. There's speed bumps in the way, and there's problems and ebb and flow of life. Just enjoy that journey. You're learning and growing and becoming, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there is something in every day that is valuable to enjoy. Second thing I wrote down, and this is a little bit controversial in our day and age, and that is, don't you young men and your young men, those of you listening, to this podcast, don't be afraid to be a real man. Now, what I mean by a real man, I don't mean the macho, tough, aggressive. In fact, I would say to young men, turn aggression into assertiveness. There's nothing wrong with being an assertive male, a dominant male, a dismissive male where you think of women as less than. And I grew up in a repressive patriarchal society. I actually believe there's nothing wrong with a patriarchal society. What I do believe is wrong is when patriarchy is oppressive, and it's been that way in many cultures, and to be honest, in most cultures. So turn your aggression more to assertiveness, young men, and those of you who are fathers and mothers, let your boys be boys. Let them be young men. That's how God created them. That competition drive that young men have. They have a real competitiveness. Now, that's not exclusive to men. A lot of women feel that way as well. But let that competition turn to purpose. And if you see your drivers being more purpose-oriented and not competitive-oriented, I'm telling you, you will enjoy life much better. I wish I had heard that when I was a young man. Yeah. The other thing was let your love be tender for children, for people in your world, even for your male friends. I think it's really important to have loving, tender relationships. I think some men are a little bit homophobic, and so they have a tendency not to draw close to men. I've had some really close male friendships, and I wish I had spent more time cultivating that as a young man. And especially in business or in ministry or whatever you're in, make sure you have older men in your life who are mentors. There's nothing wrong with that. All of this about being a real man. Be strong and lead. There's nothing wrong with leading your home. I know that's not fashionable today in 2022.
I think there's a lot of women who long for that.
Yeah,
I disagree.
I do too. But I mean, in society, men that are leading are oftentimes seen as repressive. Right. And if you are repressive, then you need to rethink that. But there's nothing wrong with being a strong male leader. There's something wrong with being repressive, dominant male, however. So find that balance. Respect women. One of the things I would say, I was raised by a father who really respected my mother and treated her well. As Kimberly knows, I open her door. Those are some chivalry that I do. It's not about dominating her.
You for sure don't let me walk on the sidewalk closest to the traffic.
We found that on our vacation. It's kind of like, okay, we're on the other side. Let's switch. And it's like, I don't know where to go. All you got to do is remember, you got to be on the inside. I'll be on the outside.
That's funny, but actually I love that about you because it's a heart of protection and I think that's very rare, and I love that part of you.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being a protector. Yeah. In fact, it's important to be a protector.
I think that's
part of being a man.
And that's not mutually exclusive to being a man. It's also for a female role. It's our job to be protectors in a different way.
A guy named Michael Foster, not our friend Mike Foster, but Michael Foster wrote a book called It's Good to Be a Man. And he really talks about the importance of traditional male roles, and then he of course talks about abuses and so forth. But it's really important that men are allowed to be men. And I watch our grandsons, because we have 5 grandsons and another 6th grandson on the way. We have 1 granddaughter and another granddaughter on the way.
Yeah, on the way.
Yeah. And but I watch those boys. They're different than the girls,
Yes.
Roma is this tender, our granddaughter, she's tender, loving, and they live in Illinois now, so I don't get to see her very much, but she's just like when she runs up to me and loves them. The boys do too, but there's something special. So and another thing was, don't worry if things are bad, they will improve. And that goes for men and women, but especially men. When your business is not going well, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a businessman, a leader, a supervisor, or even you're not a supervisor, you're just working in a company and you have supervisors. Look, things get bad, but they will improve. Things will change. I think don't get stuck in that.
Yeah.
That kind of goes with my real one, or the first one was enjoy the journey. Another one was don't wait to act on your dreams. Now, I know you're going to talk about dreams too. And, I think for me, I was always afraid to follow that dream. And I was always putting it off. One of the things, some of you know, I wrote a book about 12 years ago, and it was just published this last year. And I've got several other books that are, either complete or close to completion. And I think I've let fear be the driver of that. I think
chasing that dream.
women need to know
for
that
sure.
too.
In
don't
fact,
you think?
as I'm listening to you, it's so interesting because there are some things that are mutually exclusive to being a male, but I think you'll find, because we created our list separately, so I think you'll find, though, that there's a lot of parallels when I start going through mine. But yeah, it's
You
part of
think
the
women-
human experience.
Women have a tendency to do that as well, is wait and not act on
Yes,
that
right,
dream.
right.
And so
Yeah.
forth.
Given a dream or an idea, you get shot down. There's all kinds of reasons why you talk yourself out of pursuing that, timing but really, like, that's I believe God wired us to have the scripture talks about it, to dream dreams, to have visions for the future, and those are God given, so it's important to find a space in your life to be able to work towards those dreams.
Yeah, we have 3 sons and 2 son-in-laws. Essentially, we have 5 sons. And my advice to them would be, don't put God second.
Yeah.
Don't put God second. Don't put
so
God
good.
second behind your wife. Don't put God second behind your children,
Yes.
your career, your money, your talents, your gifts. Put God first in everything. I think that has been the great struggle in everybody's life because we have these dreams that we want to accomplish. Some of those are ego driven and so forth and competition driven. But to really put God first every time you think of it is say, today, God, I want you to be first. And of course, that goes for men and women. I don't know if women are better at putting God first. I think it's just a human struggle, putting God first because it's that faith relationship we have with God. But a couple of ways to do that is make sure you're in the Bible, you're reading the Word of God, that you are praying, not just when you're hurting, but when you're thankful. Pray for the things you're thankful for. Even if it's just a brief prayer, you don't have to pray long. I would say to young fathers and young husbands, pray with your wife.
Yeah.
Pray with your family.
That's so valuable.
And it's,
Can't tell you, for me,
yeah.
just to interject here, I was
Yeah.
obviously in a marriage before marrying you, and I was married to a pastor, and that was not a part of our life, and I so longed and asked for it, and there's such a safety that comes from that. You feel protected, you feel loved, you feel like you're both on the same level, before the Lord, seeking His will and His direction, and you feel protection in that as a spouse when you're going to the Lord together in prayer. And that's one of the things I'm so grateful for that you've always done every day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be big, long, and fancy, but it's just, as a wife, knowing that your husband is seeking Jesus and His will for your life, when they fail, and they will, because we are human and so will you, knowing their heart is in that place to pursue the Lord, to please Him, it allows you to have a large margin of forgiveness because they're their heart before the Lord.
And find the right time to do it. So we used to try to pray in the morning. I'd get up early and then I'd wake Kimberly up, pray with her, and she'd try to go back to sleep. That doesn't work very well. Now I kiss her in the morning when I leave, real quick, and sometimes not as quick, but and just
that's another episode.
Close the drapes and so forth, but. So it can, doesn't wake you up, or close the window so it's not loud outside or whatever. But
you're making it sound like I sleep until 10. I'm
babe,
literally
I
up at 7.
I get up at 4:30 or 5. No, it's fair enough. You don't sleep in. But we found that was not the best time. The best time is when we go to bed at night and
review the day.
And just have some time. And I heard this pastor say one time, he goes, I usually pray because I pray for about 2 minutes. And if my wife prays, it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And man, that's true in our family. I think women are wordier.
Well, in that sense, maybe in prayer, but
Yeah. Well, I'm wordy. That's
you have
for
more
sure.
words than me in most days.
I'm unusual.
When it comes to prayer, though, I'm telling you, your sons, we have family night every Sunday night, and everybody's so stoked that Dad prays over the dinner because he gets her done. Like, he just...
You're there to thank God for the food and move on. Come on,
Yeah,
let's go.
let's go.
But another thing, and that is that don't let bad situations in your life go unresolved.
That's good.
When you have a conflict with somebody, resolve it. And I have not always followed that. And I know fear has been a part of that. To let someone that you know is hurt by you, or that you've actually hurt, or they perceive that you hurt them, or maybe you wronged, or someone maybe has wronged you, instead of just letting that sit there. Bitterness can grow in that situation, almost always does. But do the difficult task of the hard work of reconciliation. Usually once you get past the first moment, you're good. And for us, it's easier for us because we don't want the breach between us. But you can't, I can't go anywhere,
Yeah.
I've never slept on the couch one day in our marriage, but I know there's been times where I think you wish I would. But anyway, the real point is that treat people in a way that you'd want to be treated, and that is to reach out in love, not to show how right you are, but to show how much you care about them and love them. Reconciliation is key.
Powerful.
And another thing is worry less about what people think.
Yes.
And I think that has been the great struggle for a lot of men.
Oh gosh, yeah.
A lot of men are concerned what people think. Women are too.
I'm saying gosh, yeah, because that is the human experience.
I think men manifest the worry of what other people think by their position, what they're able, success, financial success, maybe even power and influence. What about women? Where do you see?
I think there's such a wiring early on for young girls to be young and beautiful, to be perceived. There's definitely a list, but it unfortunately has way more to do with the exterior than it does the interior. And so you're always going to fall short when it comes to what the world says is the standard. We live in a day and age that it's on another level for girls with social media and the filters and all that stuff. So I think it's more about being perceived as attractive or acceptable or thin enough or all those things.
Yeah, and it used to be you had a few friends that you compared yourself with, or maybe at school you have a circle of people. Maybe if there's 1,000 kids in your high school, and you probably only know a handful, 12, 20, 30, whatever it is. And those are the ones you're concerned about. But now
it's global.
The whole world is coming into your phone.
Right.
And you see all these things, the images of people, and then the filters that are put on.
Yeah, the highlight reel of everybody's life, and then it's very fake and inauthentic, but it's a standard that's unrealistic and impossible to live by. And so you have these young girls who, very early on, I didn't grow up in that, but boy, since the social media thing became big, I certainly was bearing under the weight of that in the earlier years.
Yeah, one of the problems of not caring what other people think is that some people take it to the extent that they don't care no matter what they're doing.
Yes.
So I don't care whether, there is obviously issues of privacy, that, there are issues, things that you don't talk about in civilized community. And, there are things that you should care, not about what they think so much, but about what is appropriate, what's inappropriate to talk about. And it's also important to go, well, okay, I was mean and unkind, but I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
That can't be a justification for bad behavior.
Right.
What I mean by don't worry about what other people think is Don't worry about when you know that you are doing something that is purpose driven, it's valuable, it's something that honors God, it's something that is for your family. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about what people think about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. It goes back to me to that conversation about, it's important that we are authentic and that we are doing those things, pursuing those things. Transparency and authenticity are two different things, though. The transparency thing is where we've gone sideways as a society, where there's no filters on your words, what you say, what you do online, and there's no care for others' feelings. It's just sort of like putting your whole life or your opinions on blast. And so that's another conversation.
Yeah,
but.
there are a few things that I wrote down that are I'll just kind of bullet point these, like laugh more, spend more time laughing. The other night we went to bed laughing. I'm not going to tell the whole story because it was junior high, but it was so funny, and we're laughing. And the next morning I was told about it, and we started laughing again, or reminded. I don't mean told about it. Another thing is take more pictures of people you love, especially your children.
That's good.
I wish I'd taken more pictures. Of course, it's not as open as it is now. We took a lot of pictures on our vacation, and I'm very, very thankful for that. But man, I wish I had more pictures of my kids. Now with phones, probably
too many are being taken.
Have fun while you're living your life of purpose. Enjoy life. I already kind of talked about that. Don't wait for something to happen. Make it happen. Here's one. Put your weights back when you work out, and don't just put them anywhere. Put them where they belong. Now, this is so spiritual and so important. Obviously, it's a pet peeve.
Gym joke.
Yeah. But here's a serious one, and that is don't allow lust, greed, or fear rule your life. Lust, greed, or fear. Lust for what other people have, jealousy, lust, sexual lust, whatever it is. Don't let that be your driver. Don't let greed be your driver. You will never have enough money if you are driven by greed. If you are not driven by greed, you will learn that what you have is enough.
That's
and just
so
enjoy
good,
it. And then the fear. Fear probably has been my greatest nemesis. And people see me as very courageous and bold. And I am in so many categories of my life, but fear has been a real big problem. And the last thing that I'll talk about, because I want to finish this one up and get to Kimberly's advice to women, and that is complain less. I am a complainer, and I know it, and I call myself analytical, but it's more critical. And I'm not really critical of my family. I'm really critical of myself more than anybody. I'm really hard on myself and beat myself up when I make a mistake or whatever. But be grateful more. If you want to stop complaining, start saying nice things about people and to people. If you see something you think is valuable, say something about that. When when your children do a great job, let them know that. When you think they have done a good job of putting an ensemble together, like the clothes, I think of when Gracie was little. She had all these crazy clothes she'd wear, but man, she loved it. So anyway, they're motioning me. They're going crazy because they think we're going to run out of time, but we won't because we're getting ready to take off. And next week, we'll come to Kimberly's advice here on HopeRescue.org. Glad you've joined us.
Bye, guys.